really talks about the hard part of transformation. So not the glow ups, not the quotes, not the highlight reels, right? Real transformation comes down to four things that I had to confront in the beginning. Things that challenged my habits, things that challenged my thinking, my relationships, and my identity. And that's the hardest part. These weren't mindset tricks. They were very uncomfortable shifts. But once I faced them, my entire paradigm changed. If you're in a season where it feels like nothing is working and you find yourself like stuck in this mental loop, this is not something that you want to hear. But this might very well be the thing that you need to hear. That part. My name is Treva and I'm a creative. I'm stepping out of my own shadows and facing my own truth. I have and still continue to do so, because once you get on the path, baby, you do not get off the path, is what I'm trying to say. This piece of content here today is for mature creatives who know that they're capable of more, but just kind of keep getting in their own way. The first thing that I had to realize that I needed to do was Leggo my ego. And not the entire ego, but most of the ego. And for context, just so that we're on the same page, let's first just have a description, or a definition of what ego means. So according to dictionary.com, ego, noun, and it is defined as conceit or self-importance. Basically, an inflated or an exaggerated sense of self. And the fun fact is ego is actually a Latin term meaning I. It's that part, the exaggerated sense of self, the self-importance that leads to arrogance, and straight up and down, you're not humble. And I had that. I can't, like now, right now, sitting here, I can't believe that I was that person that really wasn't that humble. I'm very nice, sure, treat people well, that sort of thing. But when it came to my craft, specifically as a creative, you could tell me nothing. I was like Kanye West. You can't tell me nothing. And I have two clear examples of this that I want to share with you. I have many more, but I'll only share two today because I'm trying to keep this video under 30 minutes here. So one of the first examples that I can share with you was in New York, I had a vocal coach. And so she said to me, you know what, Treva, you need to do more performing. You live in Harlem, right? Why don't you go to the Apollo to perform at the Apollo night? Remember the It's Showtime at the Apollo? I was like, oh, hell no. No, baby. I don't do that. No. Now, I didn't carry on like this in front of her, but in my mind, I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. Now, the truth of the matter is I was just afraid. There was some fear there. Naturally, that's a big thing to do. I'm in my early 20s, you know what I mean? And then back in the day, they had the Sandman, you're scared to get booed. It was fear, but I didn't know to call it that, right? I just was like, oh no, I'm not going to Apollo. And then some years passed, and my friend's husband had suggested to me one day, I was looking for a job, and I'm at their house, and he comes up to me and he goes, you know, Treva, since you want to be a recording artist, why don't you go and apply to a record company? You know, and then that way you'll be kind of on the inside. You'll get to see what it's like. In hindsight, great idea. Then, no. Again, I didn't carry on like that in front of people. Instinctively, I knew that was like such an asshole way of being, right? But in my head, I was like, oh no. No, I am the recording artist. I'm not going up there to be some employee. But what I failed to realize, and as Keke Palmer liked to say, the gag is, a recording artist is an employee. You know what? I'm gonna be honest and tell you, the arrogance was, I had this preconceived notion or idea of how a recording artist was supposed to become. And if it didn't look like that, I didn't want it. I didn't want it no other way. I didn't want to get out there on the street corner singing woo, with a bucket. I didn't want to go to these little open mic nights. I said, I don't know. It's not that I thought it was like beneath me, but I just didn't think that that's how real artists became these profound professional celebrity And it took me many years to become humble. And the bottom line is I was extremely ignorant. Let's call it what it was. I was extremely ignorant. I had no idea. And at some point I realized my thinking is incorrect. I need to transform this thought process, this perspective. And as Socrates said, and later Erykah Badu would say, a man that, where's my mic? A man that knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. A man that knows something knows that he knows nothing, is what Socrates once said, and Erykah Badu sung. And I used to sing that song on and on all the time in a jazz band. Never knew that that one particular line was going to really hit me in the groin and really wake me up. And it did, and it woke me up. And it's one of those things that became a staple for why I'm so humble now. I will listen to my cats, okay? It's that real, you know what I mean? I went from being like, nobody can tell me nothing, to please, somebody, and I will listen to anybody. So humbling myself and now opening myself has been such a treasure, so rewarding. It allowed me found opportunities. I found myself. I didn't know that I could host several events. That was amazing, right? Would never have had that opportunity if no one suggested it to me. Had the opportunity of doing some acting background work and just opening myself to all of these possibilities that I would have normally closed myself off to because my ego told me I was supposed to be front and center. My ego said that you're supposed to be this way and this is the way you're supposed to go. So number 2, not taking responsibility. Not taking responsibility for what's next in my life and not taking accountability for how I got here in this particular space in my life, right? Blaming other people was something that I had to work extremely hard on. Extremely. That was something, and I'm gonna be honest with you, not until maybe just within a couple of years ago, I truly packed it away. It was ebbs and flows. You know, it was moments where it was like, okay, I'm there, not there. Okay, I'm halfway forgetting. I'm halfway stop blaming people, but then I will always go back to blaming people. The blame game, not taking responsibility, wanting a pity party, having a pity party, enjoying the pity party, getting fabulous and dolled up, darling, for the pity party, okay? And I had to realize at some point, when are you going to say you're the reason why? My grandmother used to say this when I was younger, and I used to argue this point even back then. Not argue, not too much with my grandmother, not too much, okay? But she did allow me to like have a voice and we would have our conversations. But my dad used to do the same thing. My dad constantly talked about what happened to him as a child and the abuse that he had to endure by the hands of his father as a child and how it has affected him, and it is the reason why he hasn't made it to his full potential to this day. My mom does the same thing. And it's very interesting, you know, who we become and the things that we do and say. A lot of times is linked to the people who've raised us. You know, I like to call it our early programmers. They done it first, they done it well, and naturally we just picked up on it, right? So my grandmother used to always tell my father, she used to always say, Junior, you can't keep blaming your daddy for everything. When are you going to be a man and say, this is my life here? Now, he was wrong, and I know it hurt you, but you got to let that go. You have got to let it go, and you have got to take responsibility for your life. Your life is your life now. Now, when you was a child, you had to do what your daddy said. We all did. But now that you're an adult, now what you gonna do? You know? And she was that type of person though. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But I used to say to her, you know, how he was raised really did affect him. And we tend to dismiss how children are raised thinking, okay, they can be raised one way, but it doesn't affect who they become later on. And in fact, it does. We cannot dismiss, and I still believe that to this day. So it's kind of a complex conversation. It really is. and almost nuanced to a degree, but I do believe that we need to understand that how you are raised is very instrumental in who you become, right? Why do you think so many people pay very strict attention to how their children are raised? Why do you think so many people go through great lengths and great pain to make sure that their children get the best education? They're in the best environments when they're younger because they know that that is going to help them pave the way for them as they get older. It sets the tone for who they're going to become naturally. Does that mean that they are going to become their fullest and best potential? Not always. Nothing is 100%. I joined in and followed the steps of my mother and my father and other people, and I did the blame game pity party. It was because of my mother for not listening to me that, I didn't make it. And then I blame my choir teacher for rejecting me for a solo role. I worked so hard for this solo role. And for many years I held on to this. I would cry about it because it really hurted me. You know what I mean? I worked so hard for this and to get rejected, and I didn't see why I got rejected. You know what I mean? Once I even became an adult, I was in my 20s living in New York, still rerunning these scripts and these stories in my head, making myself cry, getting upset. Oh, you see, this is why. Blame family members when I asked them to manage me and help me with this career that I wanted to embark on. They rejected me. I blamed them for that. I blamed every single person but myself for not taking autonomy over my potential career. And yeah, I did little things, and when I lived in New York, I sung here or there, but I wasn't consistent. I wasn't consistent because no one believed in me. It was always somebody else's fault. And it just got to a point where I had to work extremely hard at reframing my mind. It took me listening to a lot of motivational speakers, and Eric Thomas is one of them. He used to always say, "You owe you. Nobody owe you nothing." My grandmother used to always say that too. Nobody owes you nothing. I didn't like that. But I guess they're right. I guess they're right. No one owes you nothing. It's your vision. Nobody has to walk that journey with you. And in fact, it's your journey. You're the one that's supposed to walk that journey. No one owes it to you. I started to learn that other people have made it and went through the same rejections, if not worse. Right? And they made it. So then I had an aha moment. My grandmother was actually right, on the right track. You cannot hold on to your childhood and what has happened to you and the rejections you have had. You use that to propel you forward. You don't use it to keep you stagnant or holding you back. That's not what those rejections are for. And in fact, plot twist, we need those rejections. We actually need those rejections. Who would you be? Especially think about it as a creative or as anybody, but who would you be if every single thing you embarked on went absolutely your way? Epictetus once said, "Small-minded people blame others. Average people blame themselves. But the wise blame no one." There's no need to blame anyone for anything. This is how it's supposed to go. And you have to be okay with that. And it really prevents you from doing the work that you need to do. So now I question the blame game and the pity party. Is that a way to not do the work? It's like your little clutch to say, "Oh, this is why I can't do it." No. Stop relying on that, because that has nothing to do with the work that you could be putting in right now. If you have a hard time getting started, well, so does everybody else. But you do start, stop. Oh, you get tired, take a nap, get up, do it again. Oh, don't work out, that's okay. Go back, do it again. You just keep hitting it until one day it's like, oh wow, it's working out, right? You realize it just really is just a clutch for not doing the work. Rejection is a blessing. Number 3, never feeling like it. God, if that's not something that I'm still struggling with, that is one of those things that I have to face, not feeling like it. You want to go somewhere, you want to be someone, you have a desire. Well, those desires in who you want to become and where you want to go, it takes action. The worst thing that you can say is, I don't feel like it. And I just call it what it is. It's just pure laziness. And I feel like a lot of people don't like to hear that word because it's demonized. You're healthy, you're able-bodied, you're able to do the work, but you don't do the work. You know how many times I found myself saying, I don't feel like it. Oh God, I just don't feel like it. What else would you call it? And then what I find is it becomes this stressful mental loop, right? I can give you my own, right? Because it's about me being totally transparent. I'm into that sort of thing. It turns me on a bit. It gets me all aroused. I love the truth. I love the truth. When they say the truth will set you free, that's what they mean, and it really has set me free. So that's why I'm sharing it. Let's take YouTube for instance. I realized we're coming into 2026, and I was going through some old receipts and stuff and looking at an apartment that I had in 2016 and realized, oh my God, that was 10 years ago. I have pictures up of when I was like setting up I had a little small apartment then, and I was using it as like a studio space. Of course I lived there, but I was like trying to train my mind that this is for work, because I made the declaration then of what I wanted to do. I got notes from 2016, 2017 of what my YouTube channel was going to be about, okay? So I cannot believe it's been a decade. It is absolutely mind-boggling that it's been 10 years. So yeah, now I feel like, okay, girl, you better just go and keep going, and then don't look back or turn into a pillar of salt here. Bad, or what was I saying? Okay, YouTubing. But there was times, and this has happened the entire 10 years. If you ask me, well, what has happened? Why haven't you been able to like keep going? I'll tell you what happened. I ain't feel like it. I would say, okay, I know I should work because I gotta work. So outside of working my 9 to 5, I would say, okay, the weekend is here. Well, first of all, I was hanging out. That was damning. Getting drunk on the weekends or on a Friday, come home, had to recoup for 2-3 days. Then I didn't feel like it because I have a hangover. And then when I wasn't doing that, I would make things bigger than what it was. That's one. Ooh, make things so much bigger than what it was, okay? Or I gotta put on my makeup. Or I don't feel like it. Or I gotta set the camera. Well, I didn't have a camera at the time. I just had my phone, which I'm still using now, although I do have a camera. Oh, I didn't feel like doing that, setting that up. Then I have to clean up my apartment. I wasn't as clean and tidy as I am now. So my little baby apartment was always a hurricane done hit it. Looked like a hurricane done hit it. And then I didn't feel like doing that. I didn't feel like having to clean it up and make sure the place was spotless, because I'd be damn if I'm going to show up on camera and the boogeyman is coming out the closet. Absolutely not. And there was a time when I was so against like showing up with the do-rag and the bonnet, although I do it now, but back then, oh my God, would never. So, but I didn't feel like doing my makeup. I didn't feel like doing my hair. It was just the thought of doing all of that was just too much. So I didn't do it. Then when I finally would do it, have myself all together, I would sit in front of the camera, I didn't have nothing to talk about, right? I had all of these ideas, but then when it was time to actually hit record, I'm dolled up, place clean. I was like, oh, that's why you should just go, And there was a lot of trial and error. And then I went to other platforms because I thought that it was easier, like Instagram and then TikTok. Right when Musical.ly turned into TikTok, I jumped on TikTok, and then I was doing that. I thought, well, let me stick with this because apparently YouTube is just too hard for me. And it just became just this thing. And finally I said to myself, Treva, you have got, because one day I caught myself. I was like, oh, I know I should be up doing this and doing that. Oh, I don't feel like it. Then I said, oh, that's my problem. I keep saying I don't feel like it. And the more you say it, the more it becomes a reality, right? We have to watch our verbiage because although the feeling may be there, you don't solidify it with the narrative. If anything, use the verbiage to change the feeling, right? I didn't have that concept. It took many years to understand that concept. Now we're here now. And I can tell you it's freeing, and I can push through resistance a lot more easier now. Do you know what I mean? And I'll even say this, and then I'll move on to the last and final point. So we've had a couple of snow days here, and the snow day is here today, and I'm being productive today. But I realized this morning, and I started to make a video, and in fact I did make a video on it for my YouTube short, but the audio, I don't know what happened. The audio is messed up, so I don't know if I can salvage it or not. If I can, I'll post it. But what came to my mind was very interesting because, okay, Saturday I was getting myself ready for the storm. So Sunday I had time to be productive because I was in the house. I went out, walked around in the snow for just a little bit, came back, and I could have been productive, but I wasn't. I just chilled and relaxed. And then I did wound up getting a headache and having some cramps, so I just laid and chilled. On Monday, the buses were suspended. I could have been productive here. Didn't do it, laid around. And I will tell you, so this is not a blaming, this is a real thing where I'm just pinpointing certain habits and understanding where they came from, but not using it as a clutch. See, so that's the difference, what I've learned to do now. And here it is. So growing up, like a lot of kids, I grew up in front of the TV. My mom was off doing her own thing. I grew up alone, watching TV. Also doing like fun, creative things because I like to listen to the radio, sing and dance, and I would do that in my room. But besides that, I would sleep a lot. I would sleep to the TV, eat to the TV, then sleep and eat. And so that's second nature for me now. And it's so funny because yesterday and Sunday I was thinking, this feels so good because it was so nostalgic to me. Just saying that for the majority of my childhood, the only discipline that I had, the structure that I had, was going to school. I had to get up at a certain time, be to school. My mother made sure I was on time for school, which was great. Anything outside of that, discipline and structure, especially to uplift myself or take my ideas, my intellect, my emotional well-being, my spirituality to another level, I didn't have that, right? We didn't have church. We didn't have, conversations about emotional, we didn't have any of that. Everything else was just free form. So now as an adult, trying to get this discipline to uplift myself, I heard a saying that I think Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than on your job. And I said, oh, I love that. I posted it up, thought I was so cute. The truth of the matter is, it's very difficult for most of us to work harder on ourselves than our jobs. We barely want to work hard on our jobs. And we damn sure ain't working hard on ourselves because we don't even value ourselves in that way to work hard on ourselves. First of all, we think we okay. Oh, I'm fine. It's like, no, you're not. You're not fine. You aight, but you ain't fine. You can do better. So that's one thing that I realize, that now I no longer have a negative outlook or perception of having a job. But the trick is for me is to attach the discipline that I have for something that I know I need to have it for, and then attach myself to that. What does that mean?
So I realized for me, I'm not at the stage where I can leave my job because I have not mastered working harder for myself than I do on my job. So for me, working hard on my job, showing up, makes me show up for me. So I put those two together. When I go to work, I think about going to work, and I think about how when I'm at work, how can I work for myself at the same time? Going to work and working for the man or working for the company is also working for myself. So I intertwine them until I'm strong enough to detach them. Work ethic, and I'll detach it, keep that same work ethic, and now it's for myself. Does that make sense? That leads me into number 4, into the final point here that I had to work on. Not rewarding bad habits, not rewarding bad behavior. Stop making excuses for bad behavior. So using the same example, right, from these past couple of days, I could have easily been productive. I could have easily, but I didn't. And instead I said, oh, well, it's okay, Treva, you needed to rest. And to a degree, again, things are complex. I did need the rest. I am dealing with little small health issues like anemia and like my thyroid. So sometimes I can feel a little lethargic, but not too crazy. Because again, if I can get out here, travel 2 hours to the job, work the job, travel 2 hours home, play with the cats, hang out with friends, here and there, have drinks, turn up, then I could have that same energy for myself. So that really isn't a real excuse. Let's be real. Let's be real. Making excuses for bad behavior is not acceptable. And I've been doing that for a long time as well. Okay? And part of making excuses, if I go back to the first point, which was blaming other people, part of that was blaming other people. Well, this is why I'm like this anyway, so it isn't my fault. Then I had to learn to take responsibility. No, it is your fault. And yes, you're going to have a hard time because you're busting through something. You're dealing with something that you've never had to deal with. So will it be different? Yes, you're dealing with resistance. You're dealing with all of these things. It's going to be challenging. You're going to be fearful. But that's still not an excuse not to do it, never do it, blame other people for not doing it, and then reward yourself for not doing it. So you don't have a drink, you don't turn up after you didn't do the thing that you told yourself that you were going to do. And then I wonder why there was a time when I had really low self-esteem. That's why. Or lack of confidence. It creates a lack of confidence. When you tell yourself you're going to do something, don't do it. What you think? How do you think that that's going to make you feel? So I had to take all of that into consideration. It's the same way as a parent. You give your child a directive. They don't do it. So what? You going to throw them a party now? You're going to say, oh, it's okay, you can have a lollipop, even though you didn't do what I told you to do. Child Development 101 tells you you don't reward bad behavior. And now it's just at the point where one thing that I understand is that I have to parent myself. I have to step in and be that voice. And it is quite tricky. I'm not going to hold you, it is. But like with anything, it gets better over time, and then you become a master at it the more you do it. Even with sitting down and writing this script, this came to my mind today, and I said, oh, okay. And I almost said, I don't feel like doing all of that. Then I said, yes, you do, go ahead. But then I was like, oh, I want to eat, and then I want to cook, and I know I'll sit up here, make a big meal, and then because out of habit, early programming, every time I eat, I have to watch a show, but when I do that, I get lethargic, I get lazy, and don't do it. That's why I'm supposed to do all of that stuff after I do my work. Okay. So, but I promised myself, I set my intentions for today. So when the thought came to my mind about this topic, I said, oh, I would love to share this. Well, let me write out a script so I know my talking points. And then I first started to say, oh, I don't feel like it. I said, no, you do feel like it. You're going to do it. And then, but I was really hungry, and I said, okay, as long as, so what I'll do this differently. And sometimes you have to tweak it. Okay, so I cooked. That was like my little reward before the work was even started, and damn sure it wasn't done. But as opposed to eating and numbing out over a show that had nothing to do with what I was trying to work on, I watched something on YouTube that motivated me. That was about the topics that I'm talking about, that was about YouTubing. And so once I was done, I had that energy and I was enthused to talk about it. Here's the funny thing about this, and I'm gonna conclude it with this. The funny thing is, the reward system for me is completing all of this. So once I get myself together and get presentable and get camera ready, I get my script and talking points together, set up an apartment is together, and it's all completed and done, I will sit here and watch the video over and over and over and feel this sense of glee and empowerment. I'm so happy. That is my reward. Oddly enough, but I have to remind myself, like, girl, that's your reward. Look, bottom line is life is of ebbs and flows, trial and error. But we must face ourselves and face the truth when we mess up. That's the only way that we're actually going to learn. Amen? Or a woman. I find it so valuable to hold yourself to the fire. You must hold yourself to the fire. And I know it's very hard for me and a lot of other people. Sometimes it's so hard for people, they just choose not to do it and instead create other excuses and other ways, and they think there's a workaround. There is no workaround for facing the truth if you truly want to come from out of the shadows and be your true, authentic, creative self. And we all have to realize the true obstacle is us, right? Marcus Aurelius said, "How long will you wait to demand the best of yourself?" A mistake left uncorrected is the biggest mistake. So, this is my truth. And if you hear it and feathers get ruffled, that means something. In many ways, that means you have work to do. The same way I have work to do. And the thing is, the work doesn't stop. And that's a good thing. That's a fun thing, to absolutely be a part of evolution and see yourself the same way how amazing and brilliant it is to watch a baby evolve into an adult, to watch you evolve to this being is absolutely amazing. And other people are inspired and amazed and impressed by it as well. Here's the thing. You don't have to do the work. You can keep doing what you do. But just know this. Nothing will change unless you change.